The Ahsoka series has been a thoroughly exciting continuation of the Star Wars franchise. The Rebels series finale saw Ezra Bridger and Thrawn taken off into the unknowns of hyperspace, and Ahsoka's premise is all about finding them. Morgan Elsbeth wants to find Thrawn and start a new galaxy-wide war, and to do so, she's enlisted the services of some lightsaber-wielding mercenaries. Ahsoka knew that she was going to be in for a tough fight if she was going to thwart Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire. However, she didn't expect the ethereal battle that she faced in the last episode. Episode 4 left fans with a massive cliffhanger. Baylon Skoll defeated Ahsoka and left her for dead. When she woke up, she appeared to be in the world between worlds, and Anakin Skywalker was standing in front of her. Episode 5 picked up right where the previous episode left off, and Anakin began to complete Ahsoka's training. The lesson that Ahsoka learned will have massive implications on her character. But that's not all. That lesson foreshadowed the very real possibility that Ezra Bridger has already chosen the dark side of the Force. When Ahsoka woke up, she saw Anakin in the world between worlds, and he resolved to finish her training. The lesson was simple: life or death. Anakin drew his famous blue blade, and although Ahsoka didn't want to fight, she didn't have a choice. So she ignited her white lightsaber and locked blades with her former master. Then they were transported through Clone Wars era flashbacks. During the flashbacks, Ahsoka was reminded of all her guilt. Her orders had led to the deaths of countless clone troopers, and she had left the Jedi Order. She believed that that was a major reason that Anakin had fallen to the dark side. So the first part of Anakin's lesson was having her forgive herself. He told her that even Jedi make mistakes, and even that doesn't mean that she was responsible for Anakin becoming Darth Vader. It simply wasn't her fault, and she needed to stop blaming herself. In forgiving herself, Ahsoka also had to choose a path for her future. In a literal sense, she was choosing between life and death. She had lost her fight with Baylon Skoll, and her body was on the brink of death, floating in the waters of Cetos. So she had the opportunity to let herself die and walk away from all of her problems, just like she had walked away from the Jedi Order, and just like she had abandoned Sabine's training. However, Anakin's final lesson convinced her to choose life and continue fighting. When it was all said and done, Ahsoka was reborn with a new understanding of herself, her past, and her path forward. In a Gandalf-like transformation, she became Ahsoka the White. Her new persona represented how she could continue the good fight while not giving in to darkness. All of Anakin's darkness was inside her, but she could choose to repress that darkness and lean on her own light. Her rebirth was illustrated with a new white robe, but it was also clear that she was at peace. She wasn't depressed anymore because she had finally realized that she didn't have to carry the weight of past traumas. But what does Ahsoka's rebirth have to do with Ezra? To answer that question, we have to dive down a galactic rabbit hole. Back in Season 3 of the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka became trapped in an ethereal realm called Mortis. In that place, there were 3 divine beings: the Father, the Son, and the Daughter. For untold ages, the 3 deities had lived in peace. The Father had maintained a balance between the Son, who was the embodiment of the dark side, and the Daughter, who represented the light side of the Force. Originally, they were called to Mortis because the Father wanted Anakin to take his place and maintain balance in the Force itself. However, the Son had other plans. He wanted to combine his power with Anakin's and overthrow the Father. Anakin refused his offer, but all kinds of drama and fighting ensued. When it was all over, the Father, the Daughter, and the Son were all dead. Ahsoka also died, but the Daughter used the last of her life force to save Ahsoka from death. Because of that, a lot of fans see Ahsoka as a kind of demigod who represents the light side of the Force, and her resurrection in Episode 5 furthers that belief. The fact that she survived and the fact that she became Ahsoka the White firmly place her within the realm of the light side. Yet there were some parts of Episode 5 that were pretty confusing. Fans have debated whether Anakin actually showed up, or if Ahsoka was simply having a dream or a Force vision. Similarly, fans have debated whether they were actually in the world between worlds or just some plane of Force energy. Both of those questions can be answered by looking at things through a Mortis-shaped lens. When Anakin was on Mortis, the Father wanted him to take his place and balance the light and dark sides of the Force. At that time, Anakin refused, but now it looks like he's accepted that offer. As he was teaching Ahsoka her final lesson, he used both the light and dark sides of the Force. That was evidenced by his using both a red and blue lightsaber, along with his yellow and red Sith eyes. His time as Darth Vader gave him plenty of experience with the dark side, but after his redemption, it appears as if he's finally achieved balance. On top of that, becoming a Force god like the Father completely fulfills the Chosen One prophecy, because he was the literal embodiment of balance in the Force. As a Force deity, Anakin would also be able to speak to Ahsoka in the Force. That means that their time together doesn't have to be in the actual world between worlds. They could have been speaking in an ethereal realm, just like Mortis. That would explain why Ahsoka never went through a portal, and it would also explain why Jacen Syndulla could hear their lightsaber fight, because he was attuned to the happenings in the Force. With all of that in mind, we can finally get back to Ezra. If Anakin Skywalker has become the embodiment of the Father, he represents and maintains balance in the Force. Likewise, Ahsoka is the embodiment of the daughter, and that means that she represents the light side of the Force. That noticeably leaves the dark side of the Force without a gatekeeper, and that's a problem because the Force needs to be in balance. While he may be an unlikely candidate, Ezra Bridger is actually the perfect person to become that figure. Granted, it would be a hot take to predict that Ezra has fallen to the dark side and become a Sith. That would be a major letdown for Ahsoka, Sabine, and the Star Wars fanbase. But Ezra wouldn't have to be a Sith in order to become a gatekeeper of the dark side. The Sith were only one group of people who used the dark side's power. The Clone Wars Mortis arc made it clear that the son didn't care about the petty squabbles between the Jedi and the Sith. He simply embodied the pure and elemental aspects of the dark side. Similarly, Ezra has no allegiance to the Sith, but he has touched the dark side on a few occasions. Darth Maul even tried to train him and make him his Sith apprentice, but Ezra refused Maul and always refused total darkness. He was committed to his friends and his beliefs, but he was capable of pushing his power with the dark side, and that's why Ezra could take up the son's mantle. He can become the gatekeeper of the dark side without letting it corrupt him and without becoming evil. The son wanted more power and wanted to overthrow the father and the daughter, but Ezra would never try to overthrow Anakin and Ahsoka. That's why he would be perfect in the role of Darkside Gatekeeper, because he wouldn't be evil, and the Force would finally be in balance. But what do you think? Is Anakin the new father, and is Ahsoka the embodiment of the daughter? If that's true, could Ezra take up the son's mantle and become a pure embodiment of the dark side? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.